Hello everyone.
Hello.
I'm being a bit quiet today because the painter is just over there. Like he's literally past that door, so I don't want to shout too much. So it's a different vibe today.
Yeah.
So what's new? The painter. Excited? Oh. Excited to have him in?
Yeah. I've been fed up with the walls being white for so long.
A lot of white walls.
A lot of white walls, and I don't like white walls. For those of you that remember my flat, everything was like purple.
Do you think he watches YouTube?
I hope not.
I don't think he does. Anyway, different vibe today.
Yep.
Bit quieter. So I'm gonna get straight to it.
Go for it.
Straight to it. Email today. Very good email. Lovely email. And it's a broad topic, but I like it. And it's about motivation. And this is from someone called Ben. And Ben has said, how do you stay motivated in long projects or contracts? How do you keep it exciting? And my theory is of this, is that sometimes contracts of any length is a bit like being a goldfish in a bowl. Do you know what I mean? Like you grow to that size.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Because if it's a year, when you finish that year, you're like, oh god, that was perfect amount of time.
Yeah.
But if you're in a job for 3 years, you're like, that was a perfect amount of time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
pace
mean?
yourself.
Yeah.
Because, yeah.
It's a weird analogy, but I think it sort of works.
Yeah, I think if you thought you were doing it for a year and then someone said, oh no, it's 2, I think you'd suddenly get to the end of the year and you'd be like, oh my god, I've got another year to go. I don't know how I'm going to do this. But if you've like...
signed for 2 years
if
straight
you've
away.
like chosen to do 2 years, you pace yourself.
Yeah.
And you've got the notion in your head that you know that that's how long you've got to go for.
Yeah. But in terms of keeping like motivation, have you got any tricks of the trade?
I feel like when it comes to shows and other projects, it's slightly different, because I feel like shows, so much of it is to do with the people that you're surrounded by.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're feeling a little bit stagnant in a show, someone else will choose to do something different that night, and so suddenly you're like, oh, that was interesting and that was fun. Or alternatively, you can decide to switch things up and try something different and be that person for somebody else. Or maybe like there's a cover on that night, like things are constantly sort of changing that are out of your control, that keep you motivated and keep things fresh. But I feel like when it's a project that's just yours on your own, that, you know, it's like a solitary thing. Like the thing that's in my head is writing a book.
Yeah,
because
I was thinking that as well.
That's a long process. That's something that takes a lot of time, and it's something that's solely up to you. Like there's no one else that's part of that process, really, especially in like the first draft, which is like the longest part, I'd say. Once you get into editing, like the longest, hardest part is done, which is just getting the story out of there. And then past that point, it's like rearranging and editing and changing and cutting and adding, which I always find easier than getting the first draft out. So that first draft, when no one else is involved, that's when I find it really hard to find the motivation. But ultimately, I've just got to keep it in my head that no one else is going to write this book for me. So if I don't sit down and get it done, regardless of how I'm feeling, like if I don't feel motivated, or I don't feel like, if I don't feel like writing, or I don't feel like creatively charged, it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to get done. So if I want it done, I have to sit down and do it, regardless of whether I feel like it or not.
Yeah, I think in theatre as well, like, because it's such like a collaborative sort of piece, there's a lot of people. So some days at work you might not feel motivated and ready to do the show, but it's not even the things like on stage. It could be the stuff like off stage. It could be just someone coming in with a really nice energy and going, hey, all right, how's life, you know, bring in a coffee. And sometimes you take that mantle as well, I think. I think in a company, obviously, like some people are like naturally there all the time and they're amazing. Like we always speak about amazing company members because they're just there and they're always like picking everyone up. But I think we have our days, I guess, as like sort of the normal energy of normal people. Do you know what I mean? Not like down or always up, but like in the middle. We go like this. So sometimes, you know, some days we do like motivate other people. And it is like a big like sort of collaborative.
I think the audience is included in that, because I think the audience is included in that because there might be some days when you're really not feeling it, and even when you get on the stage, you're like, oh, like waiting for the show to start, you're like, oh, I don't know if I can do this today. And then the announcement goes off and the audience decide to cheer that night for the show beginning, and like, oh my God, and you feel like really energized by that, and you're like, oh, like they seem like really enthusiastic and they're like with us, so let's give them like an amazing show. Not that you wouldn't anyway, but suddenly you get that like influx of like, you get the energy that you needed to do like 150%, whereas before you might have just had like 110.
Yeah, I think what's like really key as well is like remembering where you've come from.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like in terms of, you know, you might be in a show and you might be like, oh my God, this show is like really hard and I just don't have the energy today to do this. But if in your mind, if you're like, just cast my mind back 5 years and go, hey, listen, in 5 years time, you're going to be doing this role on a West End stage. Like it sort of reminds you to go like, oh wow, actually that keeps me motivated. That keeps me like, oh wow, let's go and do it. Let's go and smash it, because how lucky am I and how like fortunate am I to be like living a dream.
Yeah. Do you remember when you dreamed of doing this every day?
Yeah. I think just always taking stock.
I think the hard thing about our industry is that it is a job, and there will be times when we find it really hard, or there will be times when it gets difficult to a point where we feel really tired and we feel really run down, and like any job, it is a job at the end of the day. It's a very fun job and we get a lot out of it than we would doing anything else, because this is our chosen occupation and this is what we have dreamed of doing for ages. But there will be times when we find it difficult, and we are allowed to moan. We are allowed to feel like crap, and we are allowed to feel tired, because there is this weird expectation with our industry that because there are elements of it that are glamorous, and there are elements of it that are a lot of fun, and we get to work with celebrities and we get to become celebrities, which then in turn comes with its own perks. There's like this idea that because it has perks and because it is not like your run-of-the-mill like 9-to-5 job, we aren't allowed to ever find it difficult, or we aren't allowed to ever moan or be tired, which just isn't true, and also isn't fair, because humans are humans, and also the glamorous bits that everyone sees on the outside is like 10% of the job, and the rest of it is like hard. It's hard work, and it isn't very glamorous. And you know, there are jobs that you do that look glamorous on the front, like on the surface level, but behind the scenes you're being paid peanuts to work 4 times as hard as everybody else. Like there are ups and downs with every job. I've got a theory about that. I've never thought about this theory ever. It's just come to my mind when you were talking. I was thinking maybe it's that. Maybe because I think back to when I was like, I did like amateur shows or even like school shows, and I used to absolutely love it. Like love it so much. And it's never long enough. And people will agree. People out there do like amateur shows. When do you ever do an amateur run of a show and go, yeah, I think that's enough shows now? Yeah.
Never.
It's because you work your ass off for so long.
For like 6 months to do 3 shows. So like that's like the best bit. And then you see like actors going, wait a minute, your life is like the best bit. Your life is like those shows. But it's like the equivalent of saying, hey, listen, like that show you're doing, like you have to now do that for like, you need to do 420 shows, wherever it is, a year of that one show. And that's a lot, and it's a lot to never be like, oh man, this is hard, you know, not to moan, do you know what I mean?
And also, when you're doing Amdram, or you're at school, there's nothing riding on it. Like, there's nothing riding on you doing that performance. Whereas suddenly when you're doing it professionally, there's a lot riding on it. Your income's riding on it. There's like a huge amount of people now watching who are, there's a lot of pressure that comes with it. Like, you have to be perfect. It's not on a smaller scale like Amdram. Obviously when you're doing Amdram or, you know, community theatre, you want to do the best that you possibly can, but ultimately only a church hall or a town hall or a school hall's worth of people are going to see it. Whereas when you're doing it every night for a year, suddenly that's like hundreds of thousands of people per year that are going to see you and judge you, and the pressure to be the best you can be is suddenly so much bigger than it ever was. So when you do have that pressure of, like, you know, financial income, climbing up the ladder of your chosen career, suddenly when there's lots of things riding on your job, you view it in a slightly different way. It isn't just a thing you do for fun in spare time. It isn't sort of easy breezy anymore. Suddenly it's a job, it's a career, and there's a lot more riding on it.
Yeah, so point being that it can get hard, and it can it's justified that you can be mowing.
It becomes stressful.
Yeah, a bit different point, but what do you think is like the best way to keep motivation, just keep like ever going? Do you know what I mean? So not just like the motivation to do your show that night, but the motivation to like when you've left that job and go, right, the motivation to carry on basically, the motivation to whatever, just to keep going. What would you say is the best thing to do?
I think it's like foresight and thinking about where you want to get to, how that isn't going to happen unless you keep going. Yeah.
It's like goals, isn't it? I think I'm not a massive goal setter. Like I don't like wake up and go, right, today I want to do this, or today, or by the end of this month I want this. Like, I'm not a massive goal setter, but I think I'm more of a goal setter in my career. Like I'm very like I would love to do that. Yeah. And I'm quite like tunnel vision, and I just think in any walks of life really, I think goals are pretty good because it keeps you like grounded and like sort of focused. So in terms of motivation, I'd say if you want to keep motivation like in the career or any career is to set goals and be like, right, in 2-3 years, you know, achievable goals, ones that you know you can do if you just put your mind to it. I think that's like the main thing, I think, to keep motivation for me. I think that's a really good.
Well, I was kind of talking about like running the other day, and that's how I feel about everything in my life really. Whereas if I don't have something in mind to train for, I'll find every reason not to do it. Yeah. So if I don't have a marathon to train for, or a race coming up that I need to train for, I just won't go running because I've got no reason to. I'm all about like purpose. I always talk about like having a purpose, and when I feel like the most lost and the most like anxious and the most just crap is when I don't have a purpose. Like I'm starting to find, I've found lockdown really hard for like the last month or so. At first I was like, well, this is a necessity, this is necessary to keep everybody safe, and so I was like, my purpose is staying at home for the greater good. And now that lockdown's kind of easing, or that people aren't taking it as seriously anymore, even though we should be, I'm just getting that sort of like, I no longer have like a purpose because Cinderella's just been announced that it's being moved to next year. That's news, forgot about that at the beginning of this thing. Cinderella was announced yesterday that it's moving to 2021. So I've got nothing this year now. I've got like a few tiny bits and pieces like here and there to keep me going, but I have no like purpose to work towards. So I'm starting to feel like really lost. Like instead of having like I'm here and that's where I need to get and it's a straight line, it's sort of like the tension's been let go, and so like the string of my life is sort of like gone all wobbly and wavy, and I don't really know which way I'm going or why I'm going in any direction, because I know that the thing I need to reach is so far away and there's so much time in between to fill. So that's when I lose my motivation, because I'm like, I don't know what I'm working towards.
So just keeping those.
So if I make myself little goals up until then, it keeps me going.
Well, that was that really. Very chill today. Very chill, just because the old paint is just there. To round it up, I think motivation is sort of the byproduct of goals. I think setting goals and keeping active and keeping sort of always striving for more, I think that'll always just keep your motivation. So if you're in a long contract, say you land your first like big contract, you're contracted for 6 months, say, always thinking next, always thinking, right, where am I going next? And then it'll be like a snowball, and it'll just keep you going. Well, that was that. Right, bye everyone. Be safe out there. Don't stand on a plug that's facing upwards.
I mean, I don't think anyone ever like chooses to do that.
No. Or don't like get stripped naked and belly flop onto a massive pool of Lego.
Again, don't think anyone ever chooses to do that.
People are into weird things.
I always worry when you started with getting naked.
I just think it adds a bit something special to it.
Right.
Alright, bye everyone.